Freddy Krueger was released to Dead by Daylight on the 26th of October in 2017. At this time, this was only BHVR's 6th chapter ever released. This means that Freddy is actually a relatively early killer within Dead by Daylight, as there are now 24 chapters once the Roots of Dread chapter releases this June. On release, Freddy's power was simple and faithful. Right click to bring survivors into the dream world, then basic attack to hurt them. You couldn't hurt survivors outside of the dream world, but they couldn't see you. Though faithful to the Freddy seen in movies, his power had a very big balancing problem. Freddy was very weak at the high ranks, being Dead by Daylight's worst killer at the time, and was extremely oppressive at the lower ranks, being a complete, for lack of a better term, noob stomper. This left BHVR in an admittedly difficult position where they couldn't fix him with a buff or a nerf. Make him stronger and he becomes more of a problem at lower ranks. Make him weaker and he gets bullied even more at the higher ranks. This really only left BHVR with one option. A rework was necessary, and on the 23rd of July 2019, Freddy got his rework and became the Freddy we know today. But what was his power like after the rework? In short, Freddy's rework overhauled the sleep mechanic, gave him the ability to teleport to gens in a cooldown, and allowed him to place down dream snares. Dream snares are pools of blood that slow down any survivor that runs through them for a short period of time. Additionally, Freddy could use certain add-ons to swap out the dream snares for dream pallets. Dream pallets are essentially fake pallets that Freddy can place. Once a survivor in a dream state tries to use them, they'll explode into a shower of blood. Overall, BHVR succeeded in what they wanted to do. Freddy was now much more balanced than his previous iteration, but as time went on, Freddy would become one of the most hated killers in Dead by Daylight. Initially, this was because of Freddy's slowdown add-ons, but these have since been changed and Freddy still isn't particularly liked. This dislike is now due to his power, but not because it's overtuned or overpowered, but because it is generally seen as boring or unfun to play as or against. But why? What's wrong with Freddy's power to make him seen this way? I believe the main disdain for Freddy comes from the two main issues: the lack of interest in counterplay for the survivor and the lack of depth for the killer. From the POV of a survivor, there isn't anything interesting you can do against Freddy's power. Freddy usually places his snares mid-chase so you can't disarm them before the fact. Your only options are to leave the loop or run through the snare, neither of which are particularly exciting. You can't even try to stay awake to avoid snares because even in chase you'll eventually fall asleep. From the POV of the killer, there's nothing to master with Freddy, nothing to get skilled at and put in your cool YouTube montage. You place your snares in loops and it vaults. You place dream palace in areas that survivors take to chase to and teleport to gens being worked on. The only skilled play you can do is Freddy is teleporting to a gen to cut off a survivor, but this is often too situational and a slightly aware survivor will catch on fast. But how can we fix this? What changes can be made to Freddy to make him both more appealing to play as or go against? I have a few changes in mind, and you can let me know if you agree or disagree with them in the comments. The first is changing how the sleep mechanic works. You no longer will fall asleep over time. Instead, you'll fall asleep when Freddy enters within a certain radius of you. Ideally, this radius will be at a range where you have enough time to react to Freddy accordingly as a survivor, but also at a range where it isn't too easy to make survivors sleep. When in the real world, you won't be able to see Freddy, but will be aware of how close he is due to the lullaby. The lullaby should be loudest just before being put into the dream state. Additionally, when in the dream state, all alarm clocks will be usable as long as you are outside of Freddy's tear radius. This means that in order to wake up and escape the dream world, you'll need to escape Freddy first. The sleep changes are in place to get rid of the tedious task of having to run across the map every single time you fall asleep as a survivor. These changes also aim to fix the confusion that comes with being chased with Freddy's lullaby by making Freddy have a regular tear radius inside the dream world, where all chases will take place. I also aim to make Freddy a bit more faithful here by ensuring you'll only be getting chased in the dream world, and that you won't see him in the real world anymore. I would leave Freddy's teleport as is because, as mentioned before, it can be used in a skillful way and that it is also faithful to the character with how much he is seen teleporting throughout the series. As for Freddy's main power, I would completely remove dream snares. As mentioned before, they're not very interesting to use or to face, but I believe dream pallets have potential. Dream pallets have interesting counterplay. Survivors can counter them by waking themselves up and by remembering which pallets are real. This is both a unique counter to a killer and one that is faithful to the movies, as in the movies, the characters are constantly trying to focus on details to tell if they're in a dream. But the current problem still stands. There's not many skillful plays Freddy can make with the pallets. I believe this problem can be fixed by making his main power be dream objects instead of dream pallets. Dream objects would not only contain dream pallets as they are, but also contain more objects seen within the trial such as dream generators and dream walls. Initially, Freddy would have 4 tokens but would gain 4 more for each survivor in the dream world to a maximum of 20. If a survivor leaves the dream world, Freddy will lose 4 tokens, but if those tokens are used to make dream objects before the survivor leaves the dream world, the objects will remain intact. This means that there will be consequences for the survivor being in the dream world and will make them want to leave as soon as possible. For Freddy, it'll encourage him to be quick thinking and place his objects fast, but what will the objects do? Dream pallets will work as they do now and cost 1 token. Dream walls will cost 3 tokens and can be placed in places where breakable walls can spawn, including places where a wall had been previously broken in the match. Freddy will be able to walk through dream walls and can break them with a basic attack, returning the 3 tokens. Survivors in a dream state can't walk through the walls, but they can break them by interacting with them for 5 seconds. Finally, dream generators will cost 5 tokens and can be placed in the generator spawn locations as long as a real generator isn't already there. Dream generators will work quite simply. Once the survivor in a dream state tries to interact with them, it'll explode into a shower of blood, taking a health state off the survivor. Just like dream pallets, dream objects will only be visible in the dream world. The goal of these changes are to make Freddy players have to think more about what they place. Because of the different costs of objects, they'll have to choose which ones are better for the situations they're in. Dream walls could perhaps be used mid-chase to close off an escape, while dream generators could be used early game while the survivors still aren't sure of all the generator locations. These changes will also hopefully make survivors have to think more while going against Freddy. Will they try to stay awake but risk not being able to see Freddy from afar and facing a more stealthy killer, or will they stay asleep and be paranoid on what's real and what's fake? I believe that these changes will help to improve Freddy and inject a bit of life into him. As I said before, if you agree, disagree, or change anything about anything I've said, you can leave a comment down below. If you've made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, you can subscribe to the channel. Thank you again, and goodbye.